speaking of other quarterbacks who have always been great, run a lot, that we want long term, Desmond Ridder will make his first start in Week 15 against the New Orleans Saints. And would you rather have Kyler Murray or Desmond Ridder in Dynasty?
There are a few quarterbacks in the NFL that I would rather not have than Desmond Ridder. Does that make sense? Was that the right double negative there?
Okay, how about this? Desmond Ridder or Baker Mayfield? I want to get you on record here.
Can I
really want to get you. No, I want to get you on record with this take.
Do I have to keep them forever?
Yes.
Then I'll take Baker.
Wow.
If I don't have to keep them forever, I'll take Desmond, and I will hopefully get some quick points out of him, and then I will trade him before the Falcons ever have a chance to replace him.
Oh my God. Can you say this really slowly, just for use to clip, that if you have them for the rest of your life, you would take Baker Mayfield over Desmond Ridder?
Yeah, if I were to say, let's for instance, let's say that I were a fantasy gamer, which I am, and I were playing Dynasty Fantasy Football where you get to keep the players forever. Right, and then you had to select either Baker Mayfield or Desmond Ridder, and you could never trade them. I would easily select Baker Mayfield.
So can you explain, just for the people at home, why you refuse to get excited about a highly drafted future of the franchise mobile quarterback, where it was only a matter of time until they were able to take this mantle to get in preparation for why they're clearly starting in 2023?
Yeah, it was only a matter of time before Desmond Ridder were to overtake.
It was a matter of when, not if.
It's pretty remarkable that we got to week 14 before we saw Desmond Ridder, to be honest. Like I was pumping
Arthur Smith is not great.
I was pumping the Marcus Mariota preseason. I was pretty adamant that they were going to be better than the worst team in the league. I was pretty adamant that Marcus Mariota was going to start half the season. After that, I did not think that it was going to be Marcus Mariota any longer, because Marcus Mariota is what he is.
Limited.
And
limiting on an offense.
Unlimiting, yes. So, like, Desmond Ridder, though, is freaking awful. Like, he is awful. He is really bad. He's one of the worst.
Why do you think that Desmond Ridder is awful? What's this?
Because he's one of the worst quarterback prospects in my process, and he was at Konami.
Can you use numbers to describe this? I just think.
Okay, let me use some numbers. Let me get to the numbers. 1 second. So, first of all, not that this matters in my process, but it should be noted, his 247 composite score entering college was .818, and I do not have another quarterback in my database that low.
Do you find this is like a legitimate question? Because I literally have no idea. Do you find that is predictive when solved for draft capital? Like, because obviously higher recruits get drafted higher and everything, but like once you've already solved for draft capital, does that matter at all?
No, not at all. It's just funny. That's all. It's just a funny thing to say out loud. Now everyone knows.
Listeners, just so you know listeners, I'm keeping Drew honest here as he tries to keep Desmond Ridder down.
So then he's a 23-year-old rookie quarterback, senior. 23-year-old senior rookie quarterback. His NFL.com grade was actually not terrible. It was 6.36, which is comparable to like Matt Corral and Malik Willis, fellow third-round picks this year. Who else was around there? I think we have guys like, what was that quarterback?
Who are some of the hits?
I don't think there are any. Just kidding. Kidding.
DeShone Kizer, the name you were searching for?
DeShone Kizer. I'm pretty sure he was around there. Yeah, DeShone Kizer, the 6.3.
Who are the hits from the 6.3 range?
We got a couple. You've probably never heard of them. One of them is, his name's Derek Carr, who has a singular top 12 season in his life.
I think Ritter's played a little bit Carr
10, 15 years in the NFL now. He's got one top 12 season. So, like, great job, everyone. Daniel Jones, I don't know. He's not an actual hit. He didn't have a top 12 season, but he's right in there. Mac Jones, 6.33.
Wow. Doesn't matter, better than Mac Jones.
So, Jordan Love, 6.36. Kenny Pickett, 6.4. Drew Lock, 6.4. That's pretty much it. If you don't count guys like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. If you ignore those three guys.
Oh, okay.
Then,
I was wondering when you get to them. I was patient with it. I was just letting it sit there.
We've got other guys too. We got Connor Cook, who you've probably never even heard of.
Yeah, he went to play at Michigan State. Oh, I have heard of Nathan Peterman. No.
Five
Connor Cook was the guy who famously Jerry Jones wanted instead of Dak Prescott, and then the Raiders sniped him.
That makes sense.
And so the Raiders, there's an alternate world where Connor Cook is on Dallas and Dak Prescott is somewhere else.
Yeah. So like really there's not like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Those are the guys in this bucket. All of those guys, first round picks, not third round picks. Keep that in mind. Anyways, so then that's like, not great. We have other things. We don't actually have Cubase on Desmond Ridder, but I think based on where the stats that we know matter in Cubase are where Desmond Ridder ranks in those stats, his Cubase would be really, really bad. I think we can make that.
It's conclusion. Not right next to Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, every hit, Tom Brady, every late round hit. No, it's not.
No. I'm afraid not. And then we got PFF grades. Like we got PFF passing grades, which I like. I don't necessarily use them in my process. They're more just like anecdotally used. But his PFF college grades, like he's played 4 years in college, right?
Yeah.
75.4, 65.0, 68.8, and 87.1 in his age 22 senior season. So like that's pretty good. If you only look at his last year and ignore all the other 3 years he played, like that's pretty good. Desmond Ridder, future stud. 87.7 would be that's not good. It's not very high. It's really not. Holy smokes. He's like 42nd in my database of quarterbacks. But I've only got 111. So he's like completely mediocre for highest season QBR PFF grade.
Yeah.
That being said, like it's considerably better than like someone like AJ McCarron or TJ Yates, who came in with 26 and 44.0. So there's something to be said there. And then, like, one of the great things about my favorite thing about Desmond Ridder is he played a lot of years of football.
Right, you have a big sample of Desmond.
We got a big sample. We are fairly certain he's terrible because we've seen him play for so long. So there's not a lot to be left to the imagination. The best thing about Desmond Ridder is that he did rush quite a bit. Like he was Konami in my process. So there is the possibility that he just gets on the field and runs and will score some fantasy points. And then
I think that's a probability.
That's really the only saving grace in the Desmond Ridder profile. Even if he was a first-round pick, he would have been one of the first-round picks ever drafted. Right there with Kenny Pickett. Side by side.
Yeah, so my defense of Desmond Ridder, unfortunately, is lacking. So everybody that knows, my approach to quarterbacks, I don't really care that much about quarterback evaluation. Like I really try to view the position more in terms of does he run, does he not run, and then do we think he's a decent market bet? And that's like pretty much the bulk of it. And with Ridder, like I was excited about Ridder pre-draft and post-draft because he runs. He ran like a 4.49, has not Malik Willis levels of college rushing, but pretty high levels of college rushing. And at least the speed that he was able to lay down at the combine shows that potential for more if he's used that way. In terms of the on-field product, I mean, watching him, all of the stats and everything, it paints a picture of a guy who probably just doesn't have the physical attributes to be an effective passer at the highest level. Like it took him a long time to reach the pinnacle of what he could be as a college passer. He has physical traits as a rusher. Anytime you ever watched him be interviewed, he thinks the game really well. He seems like a really sharp guy. I know during the draft process, a lot of the NFL draft Twitter folks were recommending his understanding of the offense, his ability to work pre-snap, to shift line audibles, to be able to manage the offense from game to game. Like, it seems like all of the intangibles he has. And ultimately, probably like everything that an NFL team wants out of a third round pick is a guy who has pretty much all of the qualities of being a really good backup quarterback in the NFL, where it's like you can get by with mobility. He has the smarts to be able to pick up and run an offense midstream if he's thrown into the game. And he has like enough physical attributes for the offense to not completely sink. And that's probably what he is in the NFL is a backup quarterback. I was into him from a draft process just of like, well, who knows? That's kind of where I'm at with it is like, maybe all that's wrong. And for that reason, I'm definitely rooting for him. He was probably my favorite quarterback pre-draft of this class, which does say a lot more about this class than it does Desmond Ridder. Mostly because I thought that Kenny Pickett was a really terrible prospect, and I stand by that. I thought that Malik Willis was a really intriguing fantasy asset if he was to get high draft capital because of the rushing. But I thought that his profile was even more lacking than Desmond Ridder's as a passer. And then, Matt Corral and Sam Howell on paper look a lot better. I think my issue with those guys is that to me, there's more of like almost like a binary curve in terms of how I think the NFL treats these spread offense guys, where it's like when you play in a make-believe offense, like the NFL either thinks that you have it or you don't. And when they say that you don't, then I think that you don't. And that's kind of like how I believe with like a Matt Corral, where it's like, he's not playing real football. It's like, he's literally just zone read, throw to a slant every single play. And I understand pretty easily, like I can envision how if I was a football guy, you could be like, yeah, the stats don't tell the picture. This guy's bad. And obviously like they've been generally understanding of like, okay, Kyler Murray, can play in this offense, and he's clearly another level. And Matt Corral played in this offense, and he's not it, and that's why we let him fall to the end of the third. So in terms of the combination of like the rushing ability and some like modicum of passing competence, I probably like Ridder the most, but that's really where the love affair ends. I would say if you do have Desmond Ridder and anybody else is getting really excited and does think that they're the future, I would definitely take an early second. I think if you can re-roll it. My hope with Ridder was that I thought he would start a lot earlier than this, and that we would get a period where we could almost free roll for a month, where you get to watch him play. People are going to have low expectations because he's a rookie. He's probably going to put up some fantasy points because he's going to run, and then people are going to talk themselves into him being a starter. And if he's really, really good, actually, then you can hold, because that would be really exciting. And if the more likely scenario is that he's like mediocre to bad, then you can just sell. Because we saw with that with like Davis Mills last year. People somehow talk themselves into Davis Mills. And Davis Mills holds like zero Konami upside. Like I could probably rush for more yards than Davis Mills. So that's kind of what got me excited on Ridder from a market perspective. To me, the bet is more likely than not failed. And if you can get out of it and re-roll, I'd probably do that. That being said, I will totally troll Drew like all next season if Ridder is awesome and he's the second coming of Jalen Hurts. But I will say, like, I was very on Hurts coming out, and I was on Ridder, and like for I would say two of the three reasons are the same, in the sense of like just general like asymmetrical upside for market value from quarterbacks. I love quarterbacks who run, and especially I will be in on any quarterback who runs. It doesn't cost premium capital. The difference is that Hurts was like actually good in college. Like, I understand that we no longer had a lot of faith that he would be a good NFL quarterback when he fell to round 2, but Hurts had a profile where you could much more easily talk yourself into him being good. Like, he was a super, super productive college quarterback in a way that Ridder was not.
So I have something really interesting that I just discovered while you were talking, because I wanted to illustrate this in a different way. So I do pre-draft grades, which do not factor in draft capital with the quarterback process. And I thought that we had quite a sampling here of pre-draft bust tier, which is what Desmond Ridder is, for the record. He is a bust tier pre-draft quarterback prospect with Konami ability.
Like that?
Hey?
How could you do my boy like that?
Well, he didn't do very well in college, so he kind of did it himself. Anyways, I thought we had this sample of 11. I was like, oh, man, like we got quite a few of these guys. These guys are bust tier, like just awful quarterbacks, but with Konami ability. And I was like, oh, man, like Andy Dalton fits this caliber.
Andy Dalton's a Konami quarterback.
Right? And Colin Kaepernick and Jalen Hurts and Chad Kelly and Kellen Mond and Deshaun Kaiser and Brett Hundley and Stephen McGee and Joshua Dobbs and Pat White and Drew Stanton and Desmond Ridder and Malik Willis all fit in the same category. And then what I realized is that I didn't have the damn formula set up and properly. And none of the following quarterbacks were actually bust tier pre-draft. Those quarterbacks are Andy Dalton, Colin Kaepernick, and Jalen Hurts. The 3 hits.
Wait, just to be clear, Andy Dalton was a Konami quarterback?
So this was why I was really laughing at it, because we're talking about how Konami, your dude, Desmond Ridder is. And I was like, man, how did Andy Dalton end up in this category? I wouldn't have expected that. So here's Andy Dalton's rushing yards in college. 232, 432, 512, 435. Here is Desmond Ridder.
Remarkable that Andy Dalton had
583, 655, 92, 335. They're the same freaking guy, except Andy Dalton was a way better passer.
Okay, you just listed a lot more yards for Desmond Ridder than you did for
not that many more yards. We're talking.
You have like double the amount of yards.
Okay, let's sum them. Let's do a quick sum. 2,100 versus 1,600. 500 more yards in 4 seasons.
Would you not say it's somewhat fair to make it? Would you not say it's somewhat fair to make an inference from the fact that Andy Dalton ran a 4.87 and Desmond Ridder ran a 4.52?
I think there's probably a warranted inference to be made on that front. I was as shocked as you were when Andy Dalton was putting up the same yardage as Desmond Ridder was.
Here's my question. They will be playing on the same field this week. Will you be able to tell them apart?
Probably not.
Okay, how about this? Who will score more fantasy points this week? Desmond Ridder or Andy Dalton? They play each other. And I'm asking, you know what I'm asking this? You know why I'm asking this is because I'm in a league where my quarterbacks are Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr, Matt Ryan, Andy Dalton, and Desmond Ridder, and I need to figure out who to start this week. So I'm starting Derek Carr, and then I need to decide between Desmond Ridder and Andy Dalton.
Are you favored or not favored?
I would say go either way. It's a 6-point passing touchdown league, by the way.
I think you got to go Andy Dalton. I think Desmond Ridder's way too risky. He could totally Malik Willis out there.
I'm going to Andy
Dalton. Dalton's going to get you 15, 20
I mean, points. Atlanta's pass defense is ass. I'm playing Andy Dalton. I think he can get me 2 touchdowns this week.
Interestingly, though, I can't believe that all 3 of the guys that fit the category that hit actually flipped to Bulletproof when I update the formula to actually work. I just had bust written in the friggin' tier.
Well, I understand that this is only a sample of 3, and it's not something we should fully trust, but that will legitimately give me more bullishness if and when there is a Konami quarterback who is not bust to your pre-draft that ends up being bust to your post-draft. I'm probably going to draft a lot of that.
Let me tell you who is the Bulletproof Konami quarterbacks that were not getting first-round draft capital. You ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready.
Blow your mind. It's a whole bunch of guys that aren't good. Okay, we got Dak Prescott. He's good. Andy Dalton, Colin Kaepernick, Tyrod Taylor, Jalen Hurts.
It's a pretty great list, actually.
That's the 4 that were something. But I after just finding out who
else? You said those are the 4 that were something. Who are the people that weren't something?
Well, I'm not sure the other ones are actually right because the formula wasn't working. So I don't tend to pay a lot of attention. But here's the ones that are set up currently in the formula. Then we have Colt McCoy, Jacoby Brissett, Drew Stanton, Brad Smith, Bruce Gradkowski, Troy Smith, Dennis Dixon, Seneca Wallace, Brooks Bollinger, Bradley Van Pelt, and Matt Corral.
I've heard of every single one of those names except for whoever Bradley Van Pelt. That's
he's from 2004.
Okay, that's the one.
And he's the 7th round pick, 250th overall.
Okay, yeah, that's why I haven't heard of him.
So, honestly, if you're in a dynasty draft and you're picking one of these players in round 3 or 4 of a Superflex league, that's a pretty freaking great pick.
Right. Yeah.
So, shout out to Matt Corral. You should probably pick up Matt Corral.
Matt Corral.
It's Corral. I checked it. It's the OK Corral.
There's no way that it's Corral.
No, it's Corral. Anyways, so that's that. We got some good players in there. We got some not so good players. It's going to be great. Desmond Ridder is decidedly not in that group. In fact, there's never been a bust tier Konami quarterback that was not a first round pick that has ever had a top 12 season. So,
okay, that's tough. Yeah. So, all right. So I think we've covered Desmond Ridder to death.